Close. How are you today? Welcome back to HillmanTok University and Royal Fulani Living School, week 2 of professional sewing for beginners, specifically for those of us with learning differences. So I hope everyone can hear me. Had a little bit of a, I would say, kind of tech flub this morning. I'm still trying to get back to using Switcher Studio, which is the app that I used to use when I was live streaming before and sewing. So it allows me to give you a series of different views of what I'm doing. So today I'm going to kind of like do a little bit of moving around with the camera because I want you to be able to see exactly what I'm doing while I'm doing it. So once again, welcome back to Hillman Talk. University, Panthers. This is professional sewing for those of us who are beginners. Learning differences. I am going to be your instructor for the next few weeks. We are in week 2. I'm Mina Diaz-Stevens. Mina. Um, so basically today what we're going to learn is, and I'm just going to open my computer so I can kind of see my notes a little bit because I like to stay on task because, as I mentioned to you all a few weeks ago, I am diagnosed ADHD, and one of the things that I know helps me consistently is I have to have things written down and I have to do them in order of how I've written down so that the task gets completed. And some of you understand that, some of you may not, but the classes are, of course, for everyone, but I'm really focused on those of us with learning differences because I feel like that is a community, a missed community when it comes to the sewing community, specifically to the beginner sewing community. So I want to make sure that I actually cater to and nurture that community because I am part of that community. So it's super important for me to be able to, when I am demonstrating, to be able to give you all specific views because we have a lot of visual learners. I know I'm a visual learner. So sometimes when we're taught to sew, especially virtually or online, many times you'll see the person actually sew in another position and then show you the finished demonstration or the finished product or prototype. And of course, I don't want to teach you in that way. And the way that I'm teaching you, of course, is in what is known as the chunking method. So the chunking method is pretty much me giving you different portions of the project, enough for us to be able to intellectually and creatively digest small amounts at a time. And of course, because I'm teaching you based upon professional industry standards, fashion industry standards, which is how I was taught, which is the industry that I've worked in for over 30 years. I want to make sure that you're getting it, you're understanding it, and when I'm giving you instruction that you can actually go back and look at a little at a time and not have like an hour-long video to look at where I'm doing the whole entire project or the whole product or the whole garment at one time. I want to be able to give it to you in steps and portions so that you can go back, look at the playlist, and see exactly where you need to be. If it's week 1, where we generally went over what we're going to need for this semester, or whether it's today, week 2, which is going to be, of course, we're looking at mastering how to master our sewing machine, and we're looking at the basic principles of our sewing machine. One, of course, how to wind an empty bobbin, and then 2, of course, learning how to actually thread our sewing machine. So those things are super important. So I want to make sure that when I teach those specific things to you, that you actually can visually see them. You're seeing my hands move through the machine, you're seeing me cut, you're seeing me measure, and you're seeing those steps one step at a time, and it's digestible for, of course, those of us who have learning differences. So today, of course, mastering your sewing machine, understanding your machine, seam guide, which is super important when we're sewing because we need to know what our seam allowances are in order to understand how something is put together. Um, just a little review, all classes will be conducted live or pre-recorded, just reviewing that each week. On the Royal Fulani Living School channel, which is where we are today, and we are representing the HillmanTok community. So you will see a playlist that's specifically for this course for HillmanTok University. So you won't have to go through all of the other videos that we have available. You're more than welcome to do that because they will assist you as well. And the entire channel is dedicated to those of us who have learning differences, who are just beginning to sew. Um, so our objective today is student designers will learn how to thread an empty bobbin on a Singer brand sewing machine 4411. I did introduce the 4411 to you last week. I showed it to you physically. I explained to you why that machine. I specifically recommend that as a professional and someone who has taught sewing to college students and high school students, and had to basically create a design fashion studio for both of those communities, both of those student groups. And the specific machine that I always leaned towards was the Singer 4411, because it was a machine that just was a beginner friendly machine, and specifically for those of us who have learning differences. It was also one of the machines that I had the leads repairs for. It was an affordable machine, but it was still sturdy. It's part of the heavy duty series. And if you look at the Singer heavy duty series, you'll see there's a series of numbers of machines. The 4411 is the one that's the most basic. You'll see there are others, but as a beginner, I highly recommend the Singer 4411. You can also go to the Royal Fulani Living Sew School YouTube channel. I do have a playlist specifically geared towards why this machine. So I review a series of different sewing machines that have been geared towards beginners, and then I give you the breakdown of each one, price point wise, abilities, all of that. It's very detailed, so you'll be able to make a sound decision on what's the best machine for a beginner sewer. The other thing we're going to do today is we're going to learn how to thread the actual machine, the Singer 4411. I'm going to show you how to do that in physically. You're going to see my hands, of course, like that's something that's super important to me on this channel, that you are able to physically see my hands doing the specific thing that I'm asking you to do. And once again, that's something that I'm seeing is kind of a little bit rare in the space of beginner sewing. I feel like we need to see more hands-on demonstrations. We need to see more of the actual steps, going through the actual steps, so that you can have something to refer to. The third thing, we're going to learn how to drop the bobbin into the machine, okay? So I highly recommend a drop bobbin sewing machine, which is where you have the physical bobbin. It drops into the cavity of the machine, and it's super easier to use instead of having the bobbin case. There are some machines that have a bobbin case. You need the bobbin and the case in order for the machine to function. So if you lose the case, then you have to order another case, or you have to find a way to kind of like get to Joann's, which doesn't exist anymore, or whatever your local sewing supply store is, or order online. You gotta wait. That's slowing down your progress as far as like you wanting to get your project done or see the results, or just move on from the last few steps. With a machine that has a drop bobbin, you never have to worry about that. If you lose the bobbin that goes into the drop bobbin, you basically just grab another bobbin, wind it with thread, and get started. So that is why I recommend for beginners, a sewing machine that has a drop bobbin instead of a sewing machine that has a bobbin case and bobbin as well. So you can also see that in the review that we have online. We have the playlist with the reviews for the machines. So the other thing is we're going to learn how to practice sewing straight lines. Okay, so that is super important. It doesn't matter what you're making, you have to know how to sew straight. If you don't know how to sew straight, then that's going to hinder you from moving forward every time you want to put something together. You're going to spend a lot of time seam ripping. So the one thing you want to master before you ever think about sewing a product, sewing a garment, is master sewing straight. Okay, master sewing straight. Because even when you're sewing on a curve, that stitch line still has to be nice and smooth and straight and according to your seam allowance. And we'll get to seam allowance and understanding seam allowance next week in week 3. The last thing, of course, today that we're going to, our objective is for the class is students will learn how to practice sewing straight lines on fabric. I'll introduce you all to muslin today, and you'll practice sewing straight lines on paper. So those two things are super important. It's just to kind of get you warmed up and used to using the machine, especially those of you who've never used a sewing machine before. It's super important for you to know how to sew straight on paper, sew straight on fabric. And so the way we do that in the beginning stages is We actually physically draw the lines on the fabric, physically draw the lines on the paper, and you actually stitch on those lines to master sewing straight. So we're going to go over that today as well. So the skills you'll learn today, of course, fill an empty bobbin, thread your sewing machine, drop the bobbin, and raise your bobbin thread, which is probably one of the things that I find students kind of struggle with a lot of times. If you haven't raised your bobbin thread in any machine, your machine will not function. So that is one of the things that you have to master as well. It's inserting your bobbin into the machine and then raising your bobbin thread. You need to know how to do that. After learning how to do that, sew a straight stitch on the paper and muslin, and then properly press a seam. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but we're going to go more into that in our next class in week 3. So what you'll need for this week, and I'm not expecting that you all are sewing with me while I'm doing it, but what you'll need, I always have the supply list ready for you all, and I always review next week's supply list with you this week. And then of course, each week I'll review the supply list for the upcoming week. But for this week, you'll need, of course, your sewing machine, an empty clear bobbin, and I'm gonna go grab one of those because that's the only thing I don't have in front of me. Your thread, fabric scissors, one piece of blank copy paper. Any copy paper is fine. Regular copy paper is should be fine. One 8x4 inch muslin panel. I'm actually going to measure that and cut that with you today so you can see how it's done. A seam ripper, just in case we need it, and a see-through ruler, which I reviewed those supplies with you last week, and of course our iron. So we talked about those things. During this class session, I will definitely review the supplies you need for next week's class, and I will demonstrate everything that we discussed. Okay, so we're gonna go step by step. I'm going to move the camera around a little bit because as I mentioned earlier, when I first came on, is that I'm still trying to get to like understand, like I'm using actually Switcher Studio, which I have used before teaching virtual classes online. It gives me it's pretty much different perspectives of the areas that I'm working in. And today, for some reason, I just could not get it to work. So I'm gonna move the camera around a little bit, and then of course I'm going to like be able to give you step-by-step instructions on every single thing that I'm doing. So once again, just another review. My office hours. I did not post my office hours the last class. I super duper apologize for that. That is something that I'm definitely going to do tomorrow. It's going to be always the day after the class. I will post my office hours so that if you need me, you can email me. We can do a Google Meet where I can physically see what you're doing, so that way you can show me what you need help with. Or if you have questions, I can answer them via email or through TikTok, Instagram, those DMs, and my DMs are open. So if you need to message me through any of those platforms, you can absolutely do that. You could also message me through live and for the in the chat. So if I see that at the end of class, I always check the chat for questions so that I can review your questions. Let's see. Your homework. We talked a little bit ago. Your homework will be what you see me do. Whenever you see me do that class, that's what your homework will be. How it works, how you submit it. You basically just take a photo of whatever the physical product is. Today it's going to be sewing your straight lines on paper, sewing your straight lines on muslin. You're going to take a picture of that and you're going to email it to me. My email is right in the syllabus. Once again, if you need a syllabus, please email me. Let me know you need a syllabus. It's IAMFULANI, the word beauty, @gmail.com. Email me if you still need a syllabus. But it should be, and it absolutely is, on the HillmanTok University website. When you log in for your courses where you're enrolled, it is absolutely positively there and available for you virtually. Also, we talked a little bit last week about some moving forward as far as getting a pattern and all of that. I say if you cannot find the pattern that we're going to use, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next few weeks, I absolutely am open to printing out the pattern for you and mailing it to you via, the postal service. So, because I want you to have what you need. Okay, so that's super important for the pattern. So once again, for homework, whatever you physically see me do in class today, That's what's expected for homework for, of course, those of you who are looking to get credit for the class. If you're just practicing and you need help, absolutely email me. No stress, okay? No judgment, no heat. So if you're doing this just to kind of like, just learn what's going on as far as like, do I really want to sew, how it all works? I'm absolutely fine with that. No judgment, no heat when it comes to homework. But I do find that if you consistently follow the path of homework based upon what I've taught you and whatever week I've taught you, it does help you because then I can give you feedback. So I can tell you whether or not you're on the right track. And I'll always have a visual of what I've done posted to the YouTube page and posted on the other platforms. So it's super important that I help you in that way. So let's get started. So I'm just gonna grab one supply that I don't have. All right. Because this is real life and it's reality, I always find out like that with my clear bobbins, which looks like this. Okay. So I need a clear bobbin. I have a little bit of thread on this one. I'm just going to take it off so I can demonstrate for you with a clear empty bobbin. And sometimes when you're doing things a lot, and I sew a lot, um, I stopped sewing for customers because it just became an issue. And I just don't have the bandwidth or the stress level to be able to manage customers. I love that people work with customers and people do custom work, and I think you have to have a certain certain personality type for that. I do alterations, but I only do them for my daughter because I found that it just becomes stressful. So I try to eliminate those things that are stressful for me, and that's one of them. For those of you who know, like, and I explained this to you last week, I have over 30 years of experience in the fashion industry. I went to design school. I worked in New York as an assistant designer, interned at a major company in New York. I'm not going to say the name. I will share it later because I have some stories. But also worked in London, England as a trend consultant. Just wanted more. Like I wanted to give back. And so I got into teaching, taught college for 12, 13 years, developed a high school curriculum for a charter school that eventually went out of business. But I just love teaching. So no matter what it is that I'm doing, I love teaching. During the pandemic, started my own business, Royal Fulani Living, and of course the Sew School is part of that brand. Just wanted to build my own brand. We basically focus on home goods right now. That is our focus, but we're still doing some fashion accessories. It's all inspired by my bicultural life as a West African and an American, and a lot of things are inspired by West African culture. We do a lot of combining African prints with like products and fashion, and just, we're still in the fledgling stages and we have a lot of great things coming up. As I mentioned to you all before, we were featured on The Shy. We've, done things with Wayfair. We have we're the Amazon Black Business Accelerator. So the direction that I'm going as far as like my career in fashion is more of a direction that's more corporate and more on the retail side, which I find is more financially lucrative for me rather than doing custom design. So that's kind of where I am right now. But here's our clear and empty bobbin. Okay, I'm gonna switch the camera. Okay, so you're gonna be able to see the machine because I want you to see the top of the machine. Like I said, I want us to physically be able to see everything. Okay. So here we have the top of our Singer sewing machine. Okay. And I'm going to bring this up just a little bit so we can kind of get a better view. There you go. All right. So this is fully and completely the top of the machine. Okay. Now, it does, as a beginner, all of this does get confusing. I'm not going to lie to you, because a lot of times what beginners do is we're so excited about the fact that we're going to sew, we don't read our manual. Let's just be clear. We don't go through the manual that we need for the actual machine that comes with the actual machine. And that's a lot of times, I think, it's hit or miss, because I think sometimes when you need something, you go to the manual and you look up that specific thing, or you just Google it. That is available as well. But at the same time, I feel like with certain things, you should definitely be reading your manual. How to thread a bobbin, absolutely positively, you should be looking at the manual. How to actually thread your machine, absolutely positively, you should be looking at the manual step by step, because every single machine is threaded differently. They're generally the same as far as like, I would say the mechanics of threading it, but as far as like how it's threaded, some machines are threaded different. Industrial machines are threaded different than most home sewing machines. Some machines, you have more threading on the actual, show you the actual face of the machine. Some machines you have more threading on top of the machine. So you want to make sure that your machine, you get it and you read the instructions for your machine. Even though this machine comes from the Singer Heavy Duty series, which I shared with you all earlier, every series number, there's a couple series numbers in the heavy duty series, and you want to know what your machine is capable of, and you want to know the instructions for your machine. So here we go. We have our empty bobbin. Okay, looks like that, right? So I need my empty bobbin. I need my thread. Okay, I need my thread, right? And I'm gonna put everything down. Bobbin, thread, and I need my fabric scissors. Okay, so remember we talked about this week 1. I prefer you to have the cylindrical spools. And the reason I prefer you to have the cylindrical spools is because if you notice, I call them the old school spools. The old school spools have that cap on top that kind of has a little notch where the thread fits into. So sometimes what happens is that as the thread is pulling off of the spool or feeding off of the spool, if you have the old school spools, a lot of times what happens is the thread will keep getting caught in that notch and caught in that notch, and then you'll go back and have to fix it, and it disrupts your sewing. So I would recommend the cylindrical spools. This is like something I got from, I don't even remember where I got this from, but I would recommend like Gutermann. I mentioned that Gutermann brand. They do the cylindrical spools. Coates and Clark also does the cylindrical spools, but cylindrical just means it's like fully and complete cylindrical from top to bottom. It doesn't have that lip or that cap that sits out on the top, which can create like catching when you're sewing. So you need this. Okay, we talked about our clear empty bobbin. Okay, reminder, all bobbins are not created equal. For this specific machine, it's this specific bobbin. Okay, you may have some bobbins from other machines, but for this specific machine, it's this bobbin. You want to know which bobbin works with your machine. They are not interchangeable, guys. You have to make sure that you have the right bobbin. And you want to, that's another reason why you need to read your manual. You need to read your manual because you need to know which bobbin is for my machine. 9 times out of 10, when you purchase a machine, it does come with a few bobbins to start with, maybe 2 or 3. You know what those bobbins are. You can Google it online. Which bobbins go with my, Singer Heavy Duty Series 4411? Boom, it'll pop up. Most of the time they're sold on Amazon, or there's other stores that carry them online. Of course, we know a lot of the retail stores are going out of business, boo, but at the same time, they are available. But know which bobbin works with your machine. So we're using this clear, and this is a certain class. I don't remember the exact number, but I will put that in the description today once I'm done. Okay, so this is the bobbin that's used for this machine. Why do we have several pairs of scissors? Why do we have fabric scissors and just not any regular schmegula scissors? Is because we need to have a pair of fabric scissors that we only use for cutting fabric. And we need to have paper scissors, which we only use for cutting paper. And those need to be specifically labeled. Don't use your fabric scissors for paper and vice versa. Why? Because a lot of times your fabric scissors are sharp. Okay, we want them to remain sharp. We don't want to use our fabric scissors for cutting paper. That's just a no-no. So you should have two separate pairs of scissors. Do they have to be super expensive? No. As you elevate in sewing and start from beginning and elevating up, you're going to get into, the different supplies, like Gingers are like a lot of times the scissors that are the more expensive brand. They are amazing. They're metal, but I recommend Fiskars for my beginner sewers. They're pretty reasonable as far as like price point. And then of course, I find that they do the job and they do it well. So as you can see, I have these specifically marked for fabric. My family knows, don't use these scissors for anything else except for fabric. So just make sure they're clearly marked. Even if you have a household full of kids or, just family members who just pick scissors up and start cutting, hide them. That's what I would recommend. So I have my fabric scissors, my bobbin, and of course my thread. So what I want to do is, this is my spool cap, okay? I want to take my spool cap off, right? Take my spool cap off, looks like this, okay? And then what I want to do is I want to apply my thread, okay? Put my spool of thread on. And what I always like to do is I like my spool of thread to pull from the back, okay? So I keep it this way, insert it on my wand or stem. You'll hear people sometimes say stem, okay? I want to put that there. And then I want to put my cap back in place, okay? Putting my cap back in place. All right. You don't want to keep it super tight, but give it a little bit of space, move it up a little bit so this can kind of like have a little bit of just give, okay? Then what I want to do is this. I want to take my thread and I'm going to the left of the machine. Now, here's your numbers, right? This is where things get confusing. So your threading for your bobbin is different than your threading for your machine, which most beginners kind of get confused because they're like, it's 1, 2, where am I supposed to thread the bobbin? As you can see, this is the numbers for threading the actual machine, right? It's not the numbers for threading the bobbin. They don't have numbers for threading the bobbins. They just kind of give you these visuals, okay? And as I said earlier, because those of us with learning differences, the more information, the better. For me, I know the more information, the better. So what I want to do is take my thread. I do want to thread 1, okay? So see, that's label 1. I want to thread 1, okay? And then what I want to do is I want to go down, not number 2, but I want to go down. I want to go straight down. See this small screw here, okay? I want to thread that as well. Now, here's the biggest mistakes beginners make. They do this. They just go around it like that, okay? What that's doing is that's incorrectly threaded. You don't want to do that. See this small little illustration? That illustration is telling you to twist the thread before you thread further to the right of the machine. So see that small thing? The small illustration, what you don't want to do is just go and thread like this and keep going. Because one, your tension is not going to be right on your bobbin. Your tension is going to be off on your bobbin. So you don't want to do that. What you want to do is you want to take it, you want to twist and make a loop. So see what I did with my finger? I did exactly what they're telling me to do, right? I twist and make a loop. Then I thread the screw, okay? I twisted and made a loop. Let me do it again, okay? Because I can use 2, 3, 4 demonstrations when I'm learning something new. So I don't want to do this. That's a no-no. We don't want to do that, okay? What I want to do is I want to twist and make a loop, right? And then I want to thread the screw, right? Then what I want to do is keep going to the right of the machine, right? Now, this is what you want to do, okay? Don't let your thread get out of hand. See how now it's starting to get long and out of control? Cut off the excess. If you don't need the excess, cut off the excess. Don't let your thread get out of hand, okay? Cut off what you don't need. So here I go. Now what I want to do, and I'm going to bring this close to the camera. what I want to do is this. I take my thread and take my bobbin, okay, my clear bobbin. I don't want to thread from the outside in. I want to go from the inside out of the bobbin, find one of the bobbin holes, it doesn't matter which one, and I just want to get my thread to go from, and you can see that, okay? So this is no, okay? No, I don't want to thread from the outside in. I want to thread from the inside out through any hole, doesn't matter which one, just like that, okay? See that? I want to grab that, hold it. And then what I want to do is I want to move my bobbin to the left. Find your bobbin winding stem, okay? That's this, okay? That's this right here, my bobbin winding stem. What I want to do is hold this in place. Don't let this go, okay? Hold this in place. Hold your thread in place. I want to take my bobbin and I want to pop it on top of my bobbin winding stem, okay? Then what I want to do is just pull, make sure I always want to pull a little bit just to make sure nothing is sticking. Because if something's sticking, then I'm not going to get a clean, even bobbin wound, okay? So what I want to do is I want to make sure I pull a little bit, just give a little bit, just make sure this is coming through nice and clean through the machine and I don't have anything sticking. Then, as I said before, don't let your thread get wild. If you have like a long thread, cut some of that off so that you can control it. So I want to hold this in place, okay? I'm holding it like a right angle, okay? Holding it just like a right angle, holding it straight up and in position, okay? And then what I want to do, of course, I want to make sure my machine is on. So I turned on my machine, okay? And what I want to do is I want to lock my bobbin in place. So push your bobbin and lock it in place to the right. Okay. What that does is it keeps your machine, the other parts of your machine, from functioning while the bobbin is being wound. Okay. Because one of the things you don't want your machine to do is you don't want your needle to be going up and down inside of the cavity of the machine while you're winding your bobbin. It just wears down the needle. It wears down the gears. It's just something that we don't want to do. Some machines don't mechanically turn off the function that is the needle function while you're threading the bobbin. I don't totally get that, but this machine doesn't do that. So I'll do it again. Okay. I want to pop and lock my bobbin in place. This allows my bobbin, kind of like keeps my bobbin nice and keeps it from being like untangling, keeps it straight, keeps it nice and flat, keeps it even, keeps it clean. Okay. So what I want to do is hold my thread up and in a right position, right angle position. I want to press down on my pedal and I want to begin winding my bobbin. Don't gun it. Okay. Think of this. I always tell. Okay. The first time you learn to drive, you eased into it, and that's what you should be doing when you're winding your bobbin. Okay. So now what's going to happen is as I get this wound, I'm going to hold this nice and tight. Don't let go of your thread on top. Okay. It's going to crack or break. This part is, you want this thread that we're holding, you want it to crack or break. Okay. So that's why you need to hold it nice and tight. Don't let you hold it. There we go. See that? Now I just want to wind the bobbin nice and easy. Take your time. It's giving me a nice, even threading. Super important that happens. Okay. I usually don't fill them all the way up. Some people go, all the way to the edge. I usually don't do that. Because sometimes, I just feel like, okay, I don't really need to do that. So stop. Okay. I've wound my bobbin. It's full to where I would like it to be. What I want to do is I want to take it off. Okay. I want to pop it back to the left. Boom. And I want to just pull it straight up. Right. Okay. So here I go. What I want to do is now cut my thread away from my bobbin thread away from the spool. So I'm going here and I just cut it away. Okay. So here I have my bobbin. Look how beautiful, even, okay, no buckling, no distortion, nice and even going all the way around. Okay. Super important for you to have a well thread bobbin, because that if it's all buckled or not thread evenly, that can cause your machine to malfunction and it just is a mess. So you want to make sure your bobbin is nice and evenly wound. And then also, like, some people are sticklers about the thread color of your bobbin being the same thread color as your thread, and your under thread of whatever it is you're sewing is the same thread color as your over thread. What I always recommend is keep a bunch of neutral colored threads in your bin. Like, keep a bunch of neutral. They're the best for any type of sewing. You're sewing something black and you run out of the black, you can use the neutral. Try to keep a bunch of spools of neutral colored thread in your kit. Okay. So what I want to do now, I cut and remove this from the actual thread, and then what I want to do is I want to unthread this again because I'm going to need to thread the machine. Okay. And I'm going to move the camera so you guys can watch me do that. Once again, we're always talking about how things need to be visually done. We need to learn visually. That's the one thing we want to visually learn. So I'm going to move the machine back just a little smidge. And I'm going to shift my camera, okay, so you guys can see. Just shift her down. Sorry. So, come back a little bit and over. Okay, so here we go. So I wanted to push it back a little bit because I want you guys to be able to see the front as well, because I'm going to turn it sideways so you can see the front. Okay, so here we go. I want to look at my numbers again, okay, on top of my machine. So as you see on the Singer 4011, they're all numbered. I have 1, 2, here, over that, okay? So what I want to do is, sometimes if I'm threading my machine, especially for beginners, I turn my machine off, okay? Because sometimes, accidents happen. So what I want to do is, and I'm not using it at that time, I turn it off. That way there's no accidents, okay? Because yes, your hands can be there and you can unintentionally step on the track, your foot pad, beginner. So I would say safety first, because even though it's a sewing machine, it's still a machine. And so we want to make sure that you're safe, okay? So what I want to do is I want to follow according to what's on top of the machine. And as you can see, I'll rotate it forward a little. My thread is still, okay? Cap on my thread. I want to start left of my thread, okay? I just want to take my thread. I want to put it behind the hook of number 1, okay? And then I want to look for the next number. This is number 2, okay? I want to go to number 2, same thing. And you don't just want to, a lot of times I think what happens is students just kind of lay the thread on certain things. There's a lot of grooves and indentations that your thread has to go into, because what you're creating when you sew is tension. You need tension when you sew. So what I want to do is take my thread, find number 2, insert my thread into number 2, and I want to pull my thread forward, okay? Pull my thread forward. So I've threaded 1, 2, I want to pull my thread forward. What I'm looking for now is number 3. And as I rotate my machine, I'm just going to show you so you can see. Okay. Here's number 3. Okay. What I want to do is pull my thread down, and I'm going in between that slit or groove. That is number 3. So number 3 is telling me go down. Okay. So my thread goes down. Okay. Look at number 4. Number 4 is kind of like a J, right? So it's telling me take your thread and make like a J shape. Take your thread, make a J shape. So I take my thread, make a shape, come up, okay? All right. Now here's the part that gets a little complicated. I'm gonna lower my machine so you can see. Push it back a little. Number 5 is on top. Okay. Number 5 is also giving you like a J shape too, but at the same time, I always like, call this little part. I give things nicknames. It just helps me a little bit. This part, I call it like a hammer, right? So as you can see, if I rotate my hand wheel is on the right of the machine. It's this, okay? If I manually rotate my hand wheel, watch, okay? See that little thing that's coming up and down, okay? Like the hammer, okay? So what I want to do is make sure that's in an up position, right? I don't want it to down in the machine. I want it to make sure it's in an up position. So it's in an up position. I want to take my thread and make a J, okay? Going down, okay? Now, the number 6, of course, is on the front of the machine, okay? There's number 6. I want to come down to number 6, okay? And number 6 is behind the large hook, okay? Number 6 is behind the large hook. That's where number 6 is, okay? And then I'm going to shift the camera so you guys can see inside the machine. I want to make sure you can see inside the machine. Just give me a second to adjust. Okay. So as you can see inside the machine, I'm now after number 6. I just want to thread my needle, okay? So I'm going to thread my needle. And the thread, when I thread the eye of my needle, I want to thread the eye of my needle from front to back. Front to back. I want to thread the eye of my needle from front to back, okay? There's a small hook above the eye of the needle. I want to make sure it sits behind that. And then I want to thread my needle from front to back, okay? And if you're like me and you wear glasses, make sure you're wearing them, okay? So did that and I'm done. My machine is threaded, okay? So I want to now, I'm just gonna convert a little bit and show you guys what we're gonna be doing today, because guess what? Our machine is almost up and ready to go, okay? But the most important thing that we wanna do is we wanna now insert our bobbin into our bobbin cavity, and we wanna raise our bobbin thread. Super important. The machine will not function without that, okay? So we wanna raise our bobbin thread. And I'm gonna lower my camera just a little bit more so you all can see. And here, okay. So in order for me to be able to do this, I need to turn my machine on, okay? That gives me light. It allows me to see everything that's here, okay? I want to take my bobbin, right? I need my bobbin that I just wound with this neutral tan thread that matches my actual thread that's running through the machine. Put that to the right. And what I want to do next is, this is my throat plate, okay? This whole area is my throat plate. What I need to do to get to the cavity of the machine, I need to remove this clear plate here. If you look and see, there's like a little illustration. To the right of that is this small black knob, okay? A small black knob. What I want to do is I want to push that to the right. Watch my plate pop up. Okay, I'll do that again. Close it. Okay, I want to just push that to the right and my plate will pop up. I take it, I remove it. Okay, put it to the right. Don't lose it. Don't lose it. There's certain things with the sewing machine you just don't want to lose. Your plate that covers the cavity of your machine, you don't want to lose. You can replace it. You just, once again, Google your machine series. There's plenty of replacements, but there's certain things that I recommend you try to avoid losing. So what I want to do is take my bobbin, okay? Here we go. I want to hold my bobbin in the left hand. Hold the thread in the right hand. So if I put it in front of the machine, it looks like that, okay? And what I want to do is take my bobbin and I want to insert my bobbin into the cavity of the machine. Just drop it, okay? Just drop it, right? Once I do that, if you look inside the machine, you'll see inside the machine, there is a small slit that's here. My finger can't go by bumping my nail up against it. There's a small slit that's there. I want to take the thread that I'm holding and I want to hold my bobbin in place with one finger, slide the thread underneath that slit and to the left of the machine, okay? Let's do that again because it is complicated, okay? So I have my bobbin in the left hand, thread in the right. Make sure your thread's feeding out from underneath your bobbin and to the right. I take my bobbin, I insert it into the cavity of the machine, just drop it, okay? Once you just drop it, look for the small metal slit that's right in front of that sits right at the bottom of the bobbin cavity. You'll see it. You'll be able to, you push your nail up against it gently, your nail doesn't go by it. I want to take the thread that I'm holding. I want to slide that thread under the metal slit and to the left of the machine. If you do not properly insert your bobbin into the machine and follow those steps, your machine will not function because your bobbin thread and your upper thread, which is the thread that runs off of the spool, have to work in conjunction in order for you to make a stitch. So when one of those things is malfunctioning, your stitches are either going to be they're going to be bumpy or they're not going to be consistent. Some threads are going to be loose, some threads are going to be tight. So mastering this part is super important, okay? Mastering threading the machine properly, threading an empty bobbin properly, and then actually inserting your bobbin into the machine and raising your bobbin thread are super important. That's the basics of sewing. Without those, the machine doesn't function. So I have my bobbin in my machine. What I want to do is with my left hand, I want to hold the thread that's running through my needle. Hold the thread. You have two threads now. You have one that's running out of your bobbin, okay? One that's running out of your thread, which is running through the machine. I want to hold this thread with my hand. Don't hold it tight. Just hold it kind of, semi-loose, okay? What I want to do is I want to reach to the right of the machine. I want to slide down so you can see it. To the right of the machine, I want to see my hand wheel, which is here. Forward a little bit. There. See where my hand is? My hand wheel is there. I want to use my hand wheel. Slide back so you all can see it. Okay. I want to rotate. I did not say press down on the pedal. I said rotate manually with your hand, not press down on the pedal. I want to rotate manually forward with my hand. Rotate my hand wheel forward, okay? Keep my thread, hold it nice and loose. Look at what's happening. See that? Okay? It's catching my bobbin thread. And then what I want to do with my hand is just pull this up, okay? There's my bobbin thread. Now on top of the machine, okay, as I need it to be, okay? Now all of my threads are on top of the machine. See that? See, my bobbin thread is now through the cavity and on top of the machine. That's what I need it to be. Let's do it again, second time, because I want you guys to get this, okay? Bobbin goes into the cavity. Hold the thread to the right. Slide the thread from right to left underneath the metal slit. Thread should now be to the left. Hold on to your thread that is running through the machine. Take your hand wheel, rotate your hand wheel manually forward, 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 okay? Keep rotating it forward. Watch your upper thread, which is your thread that's running through the machine and off of your spool of thread. It catches your bobbin thread, and what I want to do is I want to pull that up, and it makes a small loop. Look at a small loop. I want to grab that small loop, pull it out, and I want all my threads to be running on top of the machine. Now, here it is. What did I say earlier? Pull on your threads, make sure nothing's catching, everything is nice and smooth, beautiful, okay? Now, also, I want to control, see all this thread hanging off here? I want to cut some of this off because I want to maintain control of my threads, okay? So usually I would say give yourself at least a good, I would say like 4 or 5 inches, then cut away the rest. It gives you more control. All your threads should be going to the back of your machine. So I go take my threads in between my foot and make them go to the back of the machine. Then I take my clear throat plate, bring it back, and I want to insert that back in place. Pop. Okay. I also have this tutorial on the Royal Fulani Living Sew School page. So it is there. And now you also have the live. You're watching me do it live so you can understand it better. But I also have this tutorial on the Royal Fulani Living Sew School page. Okay. And of course, everything is in playlist order. You don't have to guess. There's a basic beginner seam finish. There's basic beginner seams. There's seam allowance. Everything that I'm teaching you in the live classes, I've already previously uploaded to the Royal Fulani Living Sew School page. So for all my beginner sewers, those videos are available to you. And of course, now you have the live, okay? So let's get to our practice, okay? Because what did we say earlier? We need to be able to learn how to sew straight. That's super important. So being able to sew straight is super important. So when I'm gonna move a few things around, okay? And I'm gonna, again, adjust my camera so you all can see the complete table. Move you up a little bit. Okay. And there. All right. And flat. Okay. So what I need now is I need a few things. I need my see-through ruler. Okay. Need that. I need a pencil. And I prefer mechanical because mechanical just works better for me, okay? I need a plain piece of paper. And, okay, this is, I mentioned this to you all before. This is muslin, okay? What's muslin? Muslin is a basic, inexpensive cotton fabric that you can purchase to create prototypes, practice things. It allows you to make the mistakes that you need to make in an inexpensive fabric rather than in your actual fabric. You never want to do something for the first time and you haven't practiced it in an inexpensive fabric. So think about it from this perspective. If you're making a wedding gown and you know that your lace costs, let's say $50 a yard, you don't want to practice the first time making that gown, the lace gown, in the $50 a yard fabric. You want to practice making it in something way less expensive than that, so you can correct all your fit issues with your customer, so that you can make mistakes when you're sewing and then correct those mistakes in the inexpensive fabric. So that's what muslin is. Muslin is basically an inexpensive cotton fabric that we purchase to do practice runs of different things that we may want to make, whether it's a product or whether it's apparel. So muslin it comes in bleached, which is this. This is the one that I have. I have tons of this on a bolt. And then it also comes in unbleached, which is kind of like looks like kind of like a sepia tone or tea stained type of color. So I want to have some muslin, okay? And then I want to have a piece of paper. Now what I'm going to do is very, very simple. This is not complicated because we're learning to sew straight, okay? So I want to, I'm going to make a muslin panel. I'm just going to measure off a muslin panel. Need my see-through ruler. I'm going to make an 8 by 4 inch muslin panel, okay? Just measure it off. That's all I need, okay? Now, most important, this is probably the most important part of your fabric. It's called the selvage, okay? This bound finished edge of your fabric is probably the most important part of every woven fabric that's known to man, and other fabrics as well. This is your reference point for everything. It's your reference point when you're cutting. It's your reference point when you're laying out patterns, and it's your reference point when you're measuring. So what I want to do is find my selvage, okay? And I'm gonna just measure off an 8x4 inch panel, okay? So, see, do I have 8? I do. Okay, so I use my selvage as my reference, and bring that up so you can see. And I just wanna measure over 4 inches using my see-through ruler, okay? Measure over 4 inches there, and just make a mark with my pencil, okay? Then I wanna measure, use that same marking, use my see-through ruler, and align it with that mark. Measure up 8 inches. Okay, and just I like to make a small mark on top too. Okay, and then lay my ruler, one of the lines on my ruler, on this line, because I know this line is accurate because it references my selvage. I know that this line, okay, this line is accurate because it references my selvage. Okay, so what I want to do is here and measure over, okay, and just 8x4 inches, okay, and then I want to cut it out, guys, using my fabric scissors, of course. Use my fabric scissors, so and this is helping you practice cutting too, because this is the thing with beginner sewing. I think sometimes, and those of us with learning differences, some things come a little bit harder to us. The simple things sometimes are a little bit harder for us than they are for other people. And so sometimes when you're in a sewing class with others who may not be from a community that have learning differences, things may come quicker for them. They do things faster. And sometimes we feel a little bit inadequate. I know I did when I first started sewing, and I didn't cut that straight, but I'm not going to worry about it. Okay. So here's my 8x4 inch small panel. What I want to do is I'm going to draw a few lines on here. Okay. So I'm going to draw just a few. I'm not going to do a bunch of them, just to kind of, because we're running up against our hours time, and I will go over if I need to. That's fine, because I want you guys to get this. And here, okay. And you're gonna draw lines going all the way across. I'm gonna do 3 just for time's sake. And there, okay. So I have my panel, I have my lines drawn. I'm gonna practice sewing straight. I also like to do it on paper, okay. And let's go the short way. I'm not gonna make you guys sew the long way. Same thing, take my ruler, so you can see, and draw a line. Just make them 1 inch apart, it's fine, okay. Line, and the more you do this as a beginner, you will not have any issue sewing straight. Okay, you just have to practice it. I know it seems a little, but at the same time, if your goal is to sew to sell, which we talked about last week, and sewing to sell means you're basically trying to now create a business from sewing products, apparel, whatever it is. Okay, you can go all the way across the page. I'm just going to do those few for time's sake. If you're sewing to sell, the more knowledge you have about technique, okay, and quality sewing, the better your product will be, and the better your sewing experience will be, and the better your purchases will be. Okay, so I'm just going to lower my camera a little, just like I did earlier. Pull back a little, and once I get this whole switcher thing set up, it's going to be better. Yeah, but I want to be able to give you all a front row view of what I'm doing. I don't want to sew off to the side and then say, ta-da, look what I made. You know, I want to be able to give you the good perspective of how this is done, okay? So I'll pull back just a little, and pull up a little, like that. And then have this go down so you can see the inside of the machine, okay? So what I want to do is take let's start with our paper. Take my paper, let's practice with that first, okay? And I want to just insert my paper into the machine, okay? I want to Just be sure that I am practicing sewing straight on the line. Okay. Practicing sewing, and I'm going to do one on the paper, and then one on the fabric so you can see it, because we're going outside of our time a little bit. So I just want to take my time. Okay, practice. Okay, that's what this is about. It's about practicing. Okay, and it's about practicing and staying straight. Don't worry about, it's not about speed, it's about accuracy. Okay, it's not about speed, it's about accuracy. So I'm taking my time. And don't gun your machine. Remember I said beginning sewing is like beginning driving. You want to accelerate carefully, and you want to go very, very slow. So that way you're learning how to control the machine, okay? Because you could go fast, but then you could have a bunch of crooked stitches. So go all the way out. Okay. And then I want to lift my foot and remove my sample from the machine. Okay, so I'll just rotate this around. See? Okay. And you're gonna practice that. You're gonna practice sewing straight on a straight line, because it's super important that you learn how to do that and you master that first. Okay, so I'm going to just rotate my hand wheel forward, release my piece from the machine, and cut my thread. Remember, give yourself a little lead. Okay, give yourself about 4 inches lead. Don't cut your thread to the quick. Okay, now let's practice that on. You're gonna practice that sewing all of your lines. Okay, I practiced one so you could see it. Okay, but I would say go to half of the paper and just practice sewing straight. Keep sewing straight. Keep sewing straight. Super important that you know how to sew straight. And then I want to insert. Now, once you finish your paper, okay, practice on your fabric. So I want to lower my foot, and there's a little bit of trick to this. Okay, like see the inside, see the center part of the foot. I try to keep the line moving right through that center, moving right through the center of the foot. I keep the line moving straight through the center of the foot, and that allows me to keep my seam straight. So I'm going to start at the top. And I'm going a little bit faster because I can. All the way out. Okay. Here's a no-no. Don't let your needle go up and down inside the machine without anything there. That creates what we call a nest on the inside of your machine. So once my fabric goes out of view or goes out from underneath the needle, I stop sewing, because what I don't want is I don't want my needle to be going up and down inside of the cavity of the machine without any type of fabric or any type of paper there, or some type of material there for the needle to actually sew on. Otherwise, you're creating sort of like these loops inside of the machine, which we call a nest, that you eventually have to clean out. Otherwise, your machine doesn't work. So I did that. I want to go back, lift my foot again, okay, and remove my sample, okay. Look. Okay, practice makes progress, not perfect, okay? So what you're gonna do is you're gonna finish up, practice sewing straight on your paper as I demonstrated, okay? And then once you finish your paper, grab your small panel of muslin and practice sewing straight on your small panel of muslin, Okay, so once again, give myself a lead. Don't cut your thread to the quick. Don't cut your thread up here. Lead. Give yourself at least a good 3 or 4 inches come out. Okay, there. Okay, I'm just gonna adjust my camera so I can see you again and you can see me. All right, so here we go. Um, this is the thing. So for our next class is week 3. Okay, I'll step back a little bit. Let me just grab my computer. All right. So our next class is week 3. Okay. What will we be working on week 3? What will we be working on for week 3? Let me just basically finish out week 2 and talk to you, review a little bit more about your homework. Your homework is exactly what we did today. And I will say this, if your goal is to eventually sew to sell, you want to practice. Like you want to keep practicing. Sewing is not that thing that you can do once and get it. It's something that you have to continuously do in order to master it. So in order to master, and I keep looking over there because the actual lens of the camera is there. Sorry about that. But it's something that you have to do to master. If you don't do it enough, you're not going to get it. It's just one of those things. It's like anything else that you're learning to do for the first time. So yeah, it may seem a little, oh, why are we sewing on paper? Why are we starting so? Because you need to master certain things before you get to the actual product or before you get to the actual garment. I will reassure you, the way that I'm going to teach you to sew is based upon industry standards. I want you to be able to sew to sell if that's your goal. If you want to sew to sell, I want you to be able to do that. I want you in 4 months, 6 months to be able to have your own website and selling your own products. That's the goal of this. But as beginners, we have to begin at the beginning, which means you have to learn how to sew straight first. It's something that you have to master first and get before you can actually sew a seam. Next week, we're going right into sewing seam allowance. We're moving right along. So I don't want you to think that, okay, this is a beginner sewing class for those of us who are learning differences. I don't want things to be slowed down, because I don't think that's how it should be done. No, we're not slowing things down. We're just being more specific. The things that I'm teaching you are things that basic things that you will need to know as a beginner so that you can sew to sell, so that you can sew anything. So the way that I'm teaching you, you'll be able to make whatever accessories, apparel, products, that are fabric based products. That is where I'm getting you to, but I'm teaching you based upon industry standards. I want you to be able to have a product that you have something retail in your product and you cannot tell the difference. That's the goal of this course. Okay. Um, and I want you to know that you can do it. That's super important because I feel like those of us with learning differences, a lot of times things have been kind of like, watered down for us a little bit, and I don't subscribe to that. I subscribe to um, giving us more time to learn something and to achieve something that it might take someone else a quicker time to do. But I want to be able to give it to you in the same superior quality as anyone else. So this is not what this class is. I'm teaching those of us who are beginner sewers, who have learning differences, based upon industry standards. I'm not teaching you any other way except for based upon industry standards because that is how you should be taught. Okay, so I'm not changing anything. I'm just giving it to you in smaller doses for us to creatively and intellectually digest. And that's all this class is. So I don't want you to think this, oh, it's a class for those of us with learning differences. It's slowed down. No, it's not slowed down. It's just I'm using the chunking method and I'm basically breaking things down into smaller bites that are more digestible for us creatively and intellectually. That's all. So for next week, let me take a look because I don't want to miss anything. Office hours. I will post my office hours tomorrow. I did not post them the week 1. My apologies. I will absolutely post them tomorrow so that you have them. They will be posted on all of our social media platforms. They'll be posted on TikTok, they'll be posted on Facebook, they'll be posted on YouTube, so that you will know when my office hours are. It's super important that you reach out to me. I will do a Google Meet with anyone who needs me to visually see what they're doing so they can understand it better. I'm here for you. Um, and of course, you have my email. Once again, if you don't have the syllabus, that is on HillmanTok University website. Go to the course. It's right in the course. All you need to do is click on it, download it. It's yours. As far as your homework, so you should be looking at reviewing the following videos. There's a few there. You click on the link, it takes you right to it. Everything we went over today, I have videos already uploaded to be able to give you step-by-step instructions on all of those things that we did today. And of course, our live that we just did today. And let's see. So for next, in order for you to submit your homework, if you're going to do that, the way you submit it to me is through my email. It's IAMFULANI, the word beauty at gmail.com, and it is in the syllabus as well. And you could email me, just take some pictures of it and send them to me. So if you want me to review anything. For next week, what we're going to be doing is understanding and executing seam allowance. Seam allowance is super important for us to move forward to create our bag. That's our ultimate goal, is to have the finished bag at the end. So in order for us to do that, we need to understand seam allowance. Our bag is going to predominantly be sewn at a certain seam allowance. And so you want to understand what that seam allowance is and practice it before you actually have to physically do it on the actual product. And I reiterate, practice makes progress. So next week, that's what we're going to be getting into. Once again, if you have any questions, I will absolutely look at trying to look at the chat while you guys are, if anyone has any questions, I always like to field them at the end. Someone said, I've been sewing for a long time and can't imagine how helpful something like this would be. And I'm losing it. Let's see. Here we go. And she said, I was a kid just playing around and trying to learn from confusing written instructions. Lauren, thank you so much for that that message. I concur. I absolutely concur. I agree. This is for a forgotten about community. I feel like, I feel like those of us with learning differences, I think the standards of the way we were taught were basically just modified ways that the average person was taught. There was no real, thought or development put into that. And having built a curriculum for high school students, and the majority of them being those with learning differences, I taught them how I taught myself. I basically had to teach myself and modify things and learn how to do things myself before there was all of this, things to help individuals with ADHD, things to help individuals with different learning differences that were actually put in place. I'm in my 50s. So there was none of that then. So I basically had to teach myself and create different methods to help myself. And so it's super important for me at this stage of the game, in my having had a career and having taught for so long, to create this page. This page is specifically geared towards those of us who are creatives, specifically in sewing, who want to learn how to sew with learning differences. And no, it's not something that's watered down. It's of the same quality that anyone else would get. It's just taught differently because it's just we learn differently. That's it. And I don't think there should be one way of learning. That's just something I don't subscribe to. I absolutely feel like in a classroom of 30, I should, as an instructor, I always had 3 or 4 different methods of teaching my students. And there was no shame in anything that I would do. I would just, even before they would ask me, if I noticed someone was struggling with something as simple as reading a ruler, which I identified with completely as a 5th and 6th grader, not understanding how to read a ruler, not knowing why I didn't know how to read a ruler, not really capturing and understanding how to read a ruler until I was in college. I'm just going to keep it 100. And then having someone give me this, which is a see-through ruler, which are the numbers are written clearly and concisely and big on here, and I understood it. And the blocks are there, and I would count the blocks to understand what a half an inch is, but understand what 1 inch is. And 4 blocks are a half an inch, and 8 blocks are 1 inch. And having that broken down to me, I would take this in my class of high school students, make a copy of this, and just put them on the table. Not even like, well, here, you're going to need this. No, I would just put them on the table and just generally say to the entire class, whoever needs the copy of the ruler with the actual written increments on the ruler, it's there if you need it. If you could see how many students would just go and grab it and have it with them, because I understood what that felt like not to be able to read a ruler. So it's super important that I created methods for my students with learning differences who were in a mixed classroom, to not make them feel ashamed about having a learning difference, or to not make them feel like they were different than everyone else, because a classroom of inclusion should be a classroom of inclusion. And as educators, we have to have more ways of teaching that are inclusive. So that's how it works. So that's why I'm here. That's what this is all about. I will be here each week with HillmanTok University. You guys have absolutely have access to the Royal Fulani Living Soul School page. It is a joy to come here and do this with you. It's a joy to partner with HillmanTok University. And I will absolutely see you guys in week 3. And once again, if you have questions, I will absolutely respond to your questions to my personal email or through the YouTube page or any platform that we're on. It's Royal Fulani Living or Royal Fulani Living Soul School. And I am FULANI, the word beauty, at gmail.com. And I'm your instructor, Nina, and I will see you in week 3. Take care. Bye.